On the morning of April 20, 1999, the world was shattered by one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. The Columbine High School massacre in Littleton, Colorado, would become forever etched in the hearts and minds of a nation, marking the beginning of an era in which school shootings became an all-too-common tragedy. The story of the massacre began not on that fateful day, but in the days, months, and years leading up to it. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were two seemingly ordinary teenage boys attending Columbine High School, but beneath their outward appearances lay a dark and disturbed world. Both were intelligent, athletic, and had friends. They were not loners in the traditional sense. However, they struggled with deep internal battles, suffering from feelings of alienation, anger, and resentment. Eric Harris, the mastermind of the attack, was described by those who knew him as charismatic and manipulative. He had a deep-seated hatred for society and often expressed his disdain through his writings, journals, and online rants. Harris believed the world was cruel, and he held the people around him in contempt, especially the students at Columbine who he felt had wronged him. His writings, which often reflected a nihilistic and violent mindset, showed a man obsessed with revenge and destruction. Dylan Klebold, his accomplice, was a quiet, introspective boy. While not as outwardly angry as Harris, Klebold's personal struggles mirrored his partner's. He grappled with depression, loneliness, and a sense of deep inadequacy. Although he was not as vocal about his hatred for society, he shared Harris's intense desire for vengeance. Klebold's troubled thoughts were amplified by his friendship with Harris, and the two would come to view their friendship as a bond that united them against the world. The duo spent months meticulously planning their attack. They envisioned themselves as soldiers in a war, believing their massacre would be a way to get back at the world that had rejected them. Harris and Klebold spent hours studying bomb-making materials and researching past acts of violence, drawing inspiration from infamous killers like Timothy McVeigh and others who had left a trail of destruction. They scouted Columbine, choosing the school because it was a symbol of the society they despised, and they thought it would offer the perfect platform for their horrific act. On that day, as students arrived at Columbine, the school appeared like any other. The early morning sun bathed the campus in warmth, and the usual buzz of school life filled the air. But behind the seemingly ordinary school day, Harris and Klebold had already placed homemade bombs in the school cafeteria, hoping to trigger a chain reaction that would kill hundreds. However, the bombs failed to detonate as planned. Undeterred, the two armed themselves with firearms and began their killing spree, entering the school with intent to massacre as many people as possible. They shot and killed students and faculty members indiscriminately, showing no remorse as they moved through the hallways of Columbine. The chaos that unfolded in those few hours left the community reeling. The gunfire rang through the halls, and the terror was palpable as students scrambled to escape and take cover. The horrifying sound of gunshots and the screams of frightened teenagers filled the air. As the day progressed, Harris and Klebold continued their attack, sparing no one who crossed their path. The police arrived at the scene but were forced to remain outside as the situation escalated, unable to enter the school without risking more casualties. Inside, the boys were determined to carry out their plan, going as far as to engage in a brief standoff with the authorities before turning their guns on themselves. The killing spree ended in their deaths, leaving behind a horrific legacy and a community forever scarred by the violence that had erupted in their midst. When the dust settled, 13 lives were lost that day, 12 students and 1 teacher, while dozens more were injured, some critically. The survivors of the massacre were left to piece together their lives in the aftermath, struggling to cope with the trauma of having witnessed or been victims of such unfathomable violence. Their lives, and the lives of their families, would never be the same. In the years following the Columbine High School massacre, the world would be left to grapple with the questions of why this tragedy occurred and what could be done to prevent future acts of violence. The motives behind the attack, feelings of alienation, depression, and a desire for vengeance, were examined in depth by experts, who would later point to the influence of media, video games, and a failure to address mental health issues as contributing factors. While Columbine remains a dark chapter in American history, it also sparked a nationwide conversation about school safety, gun control, and the mental health crisis among young people. The legacy of the massacre would go on to influence numerous policy changes, as well as the way society approaches the issues of violence and mental health. However, the true horror of Columbine lies not just in the massacre itself, but in the fact that it was a harbinger of future tragedies. Despite the efforts to address the root causes of violence in schools, the events of April 20, 1999, remain a chilling reminder of the depths of human despair and the devastating consequences of unchecked anger and hatred. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell icon to get more stories like this one and stay